Are you trying to decide which pump would be a better choice for you, the Omnipod 5 or the Tandem t:slim X2? I have had the opportunity to use both of these pumps, so today in this video, I'm going to be presenting the pros and cons of the two options. Hi, my name is Jillian. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for nearly 32 years. I'm a stay-at-home mom and I have 2 children. This is my diabetes lifestyle channel. In this channel, you'll gain access to a lot of information about type 1 diabetes and also get a look at how I balance my life living with a chronic illness and raising a family. I began using the Tandem t:slim back in July of 2019. If you've seen me mention in some of my other videos the Tandem pump, I do talk a lot about how I'm not a huge fan of the automated mode, the Control-IQ. A lot of the pumps have faults with that. It is a great safety feature and I do use it on and off from time to time, but it's not something I have turned on 24/7. I switched from the Tandem pump to the Omnipod 5 last year and I was on it for about 9 months. My main reason was to try going tubeless and I loved it. It was a very freeing experience not being tied down to the pump all the time, but I did have issues with it just like I did the t:slim. So this is just a comparison video. I have seen quite a few videos done like this in the past, but I'm gonna be honest with you, this one will be a little bit different. It's going to be focused on my lifestyle and what worked for me. So you might find this useful if you are doing a low-carb diet or like really strict control with your diabetes. Convenience is a nice factor in deciding about pumps, but for me, that is not first priority. It is my health, it is my blood sugar control, and I'm willing to put in the time to work towards those goals. So like I said, convenience is not my main priority. Please understand that my priorities may be different from your priorities. So choose wisely according to what works best for your needs. I'm gonna start off with the overall pros and cons of the two pumps. Toward the end of the video, I will be comparing the automated modes. For Tandem, that is the Control-IQ, and for Omnipod 5, that is referred to as the Smart Adjust. We are going to start off with the tubing. So the t:slim is not tubeless. Your pump is going to be ripped out more. This clip is not the best on the Tandem pump. I need to try to find an aftermarket version of this because it is constantly falling off of my pants or my dress. A lot of times I'm worried about it getting damaged. It's under warranty, so I'm good, but you know, you don't want to have to go through that process. For the Omnipod 5, for me, that's their biggest point right there. It is tubeless, so you do not have to be hooked to a pump. You're not going to lose as many pump sites. It's not going to be ripped out as much. It is kind of bulky, but it stays on well. I've never ripped one out. The PDM needs to be charged, but you do not have to disconnect any tubing to charge. You just plug in the PDM. You don't have to worry about pre-bolusing before you shower if you're worried about your blood sugar going a little higher from not receiving any insulin during your shower or bath. And also just during charging. So sometimes when I charge my Tandem, I do it if I'm gonna be on my laptop and plug it into the wall, but I am strapped down and tied into that wall for a bit while it's charging. Or like I said, disconnect when I hop in the shower, but then I have to pre-bolus for that amount of time that I'm in the shower that I'm not going to be receiving any insulin. Omnipod gets a plus for that. CGM communication. So this is a tie with Tandem and the Omnipod because they both receive CGM communication. They both use the G6 for that right now. I've heard the G7 is going to be compatible soon, but as far as I know, it is not yet. Now, I did just mention the PDM device that you need for Omnipod. You do not need a PDM with the Tandem. It's already on your body. It's your pump. It's controlling everything. It's the transmitter, receiver, everything. It's getting all communication in there. So you don't have an extra device to worry about. The PDM with the Omnipod 5, I was constantly losing it, or my daughter would grab it and hide it at the very beginning. The first day I had it, she hid it, and I was starting to panic because I couldn't find it, so I couldn't bolus my insulin. It's just another thing you have to worry about remembering when you leave the house. So the Omnipod will function without the PDM nearby, but you cannot bolus. So you're getting your basal rates and it's still adjusting your basal rates if it's communicating with your CGM, but you cannot bolus for food or correction doses or anything like that. So I'm going to give the point to Tandem. So with Omnipod, it is nice because you have the PDM to bolus from. It is a little bit more discreet if you're worried about that. Kind of just looks like you're texting on your phone when you take your insulin dose. Tandem has a Bolus Wizard, I think it's called. It's an app you can download that gives you access to bolus for your food or corrections from it. Honestly, I don't even use it. I have it on my phone, but I just don't use it because using my pump doesn't bother me. I guess it could be really convenient if you're wearing your pump under a dress and can't get up there to get it. You can use your phone and bolus. It could be a lot faster. So with Tandem, you can use the Bolus app, and with Omnipod, you could use the PDM, but you don't need the PDM for Omnipod 5 if you have an Android phone. I have an iPhone. I have always had an iPhone. I don't know why they are making it compatible with Android and not iPhone. They keep promising to come out with that update very soon, but I have not received any word on that, so I do not know how long that's going to take. So for me, I have to carry around that extra device, which is a PDM. Tandem takes the point on that one for being iPhone friendly. All right, let's talk about trash. So the T-Slim accumulates a lot of trash doing site changes, a lot. The wrappers, the cartridges, the needle, the infusion set you have to throw away. Omnipod does not. It just has the pod and the needle. So the needle goes in the sharps container, and then the expired pod, I've heard, can be recycled. I'm ashamed to admit I did not look into this further, but I've heard about this recently, that they do allow you to send your expired pods back to Insulet, and they will recycle them for you. So if you have any information about this, please let me know down in the comments. It would be nice to get confirmation on that. Almost no trash with the Omnipod, which is fantastic. Omnipod takes the point for that one. Okay, so which site change is easier and faster? Tandem's does take a little bit, especially in the beginning. It was really a struggle for me. I had a 3 or 4 month old when I first started, and it was hard. I had a really hard time doing it with him crying. I had to watch a video every time I did it. Omnipod was so easy to change. So easy. You can just follow the screen, it walks you through it. Tandem does too, but it really does take more than just reading those instructions. It is so easy to change the site. I've done it in bed with Alice with me. She's a 1.5 years, so she gets into everything. But I can keep her away long enough to finish filling my pump and inserting the new site. It's amazing. All right, so one of my favorite features is the extended bolus. I use this almost every time I give myself a food bolus. Eating a low-carb diet, you really have to be careful using the rapid acting insulin. Dr. Bernstein recommends our insulin, and that's on MDIs, multiple daily injections. It is not going to work like the rapid acting for the continuous drip of insulin you receive in a pump. So you have to make up for that with an extended bolus. I do dose for my carbs, but I also dose for my protein and sometimes my fat. The T-Slim allows you to extend your bolus anywhere from half an hour to 6 hours. The Omnipod is a max of 2 hours, Also, another reason I like Tandem's version of the extended bolus better is because they allow you to add an additional bolus to your extended bolus while it's still running. Omnipod will disregard the extended bolus and just end it early if you want to take more insulin up front. Now, like I said, I'm going to be talking about the auto modes a little bit more towards the end of the video, but right now I'm still going to elaborate on this section with the extended bolus. So with the Control IQ for Tandem, one main downfall of the Control IQ is you can only do a 2-hour extended bolus while it was activated. That 2 hours is usually good enough for me, but if I'm eating an extra fatty meal or more protein than normal, say like a ribeye, I need a 4-hour bolus. In this case, that 2-hour extended bolus would just not be enough for me, so I would have to add an additional bolus later. That is a downfall for me. However, Omnipod 5, when their Smart Adjust is activated, you cannot do an extended bolus at all. So T-Slim wins on this one. Now, I've talked to Omnipod about that because that was one of my main issues when I started using the pump. I was like, where did the extended bolus go? So I called customer service. They explained the reasoning for this was the Smart Adjust would do its job and you wouldn't need it. It would take care of the rise from excess protein and fat and just adjust your basal rates accordingly. This did not work for me at all, and I always spiked after my meals a few hours later. So that was super frustrating. I hardly ever use the Smart Adjust because of this reason. Now, this isn't really a feature I use because when I work out, my blood sugar spikes. The T-Slim has exercise mode, and this gives you a different target range than normal. It's going to be between 140 and 160. So if you start to drop below 140, it will decrease and eventually suspend your insulin. If you start to go above 160, it is going to start to increase your insulin. Omnipod 5 does have the same feature. This is set at 150 and cannot be adjusted. It does have more features than T-Slim's exercise or activity mode, but since I never really used this feature and T-Slim's allows you to set your target lower, 140 to 160, I'm gonna give T-Slim the point here just because if I was to use that, I would want to be lower. I will say the Omnipod 5 instantly decreases your basal rates when you turn on that mode. So this would be a benefit to some people if they're really worried about dropping low, if they have experience with that. The temp basal rate is a feature on both of these pumps. I keep saying pump. I realize the Omnipod is not really a pump, but they're on both of these devices. This would be used if you have an illness or if you're just having an off day and noticing that your blood sugar is a lot lower than normal, maybe your insulin sensitivity is up. So you can either raise your basal rate by a certain percentage or drop it by a certain percentage. And it lets you pick a time frame. So it can be 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours. I'm gonna call this one a tie because they're very similar. I do use the temporary basal rate when I'm sick. I like to give myself 120% of what I normally take. So it will increase my basal rate that much, just the extra 20%. This is also very useful if you are switching from multiple daily injections to a pump or a pod. You would want to decrease your basal rate because you'd still have some insulin on board, more than likely from your long-acting insulin. So just something to keep in mind, but like I said, those are a tie. Customer service. So, Tandem, hands down, is the best customer service I've ever dealt with any company. Anytime I've ever had an issue with losing a site or something not working right or the pump failing, which does happen, they always overnight me whatever I need. I am very fortunate because I live an hour from San Diego. That's where they're based out of. So I literally get it the next day, and it is great. I've had questions about their new pumps coming out, and they've always kept me up to date about it. They're very good about sending out emails and keeping their clients informed about future updates. I can't say enough good things about them. So with Omnipod, I've, for the most part, had great customer service. There was one experience where the woman was very nasty. I had a pod fail and she was making it seem like it was my fault, refusing to send me pods. I had to talk to her supervisor. He fortunately agreed to send them to me. Kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about the company. I will say that is the only person I had an issue with. Everyone else has been fantastic, but I will let you know that my doctor mentioned that she's not happy with their customer service. She prefers Tandem over them. So Tandem takes the win this time again. All right, now I am going to discuss the target ranges for each pump. The next step will be to talk about the automated modes, and part of this category is going to fall under the overall, and then part of it's going to be the target ranges if you're in either the Control IQ mode or the Smart Adjust mode. So first off, the target range for the T-Slim can be as low as 70 and as high as 250. Why you'd want your target at 250, I have no idea. That is way too high for anyone. Omnipod 5's target is 110, always. So Tandem takes the win on this. My target is 83, so that leaves a lot more math for me to deal with using the Omnipod 5, even if it's in manual mode. The Bolus calculator is going to give me insulin, or suggest I take insulin based on the 110 target. And that's frustrating. Now I'm going to touch base on the automated modes for each device. Like I said, the T-Slim uses Control IQ and the Omnipod 5 uses Smart Adjust. Now these systems both work a little bit different, but they use your settings entered or their own algorithm to adjust your basal rates according to what your CGM reads your blood sugar as. These can be very useful if you are having a hard time managing your diabetes, just in general, or for young children, anyone that has hypoglycemia a lot. Low blood sugars at night can be very scary, so having your basal rates adjusted if you go low can be very helpful. Sometimes people don't even wake up when they're low. I used to run into these issues a lot. It's very terrifying. My CGM has saved me with that, so I'm good there, but some people need the extra step and need an automated system. So these two modes do work a little bit differently. The T-Slim looks at your current blood sugar and 30 minutes into the future. The Omnipod 5 system, the Smart Adjust, looks at your current trends and 60 minutes into the future. So it looks even further. With the Omnipod 5, this look at trends also adjusts the suggested amount of insulin they're telling you to take. So if you're using that Bolus calculator, it might bump it up or bump it down more just based on what it thinks your blood sugar is going to be according to the CGM trends. So with this one, Omnipod 5 takes the point. While you have Control IQ activated on the T-Slim, you can set what is called a sleep mode. So sleep mode is a lot more aggressive than just the Control IQ. Instead of the 110 to 180 range, it's gonna keep you 110 to 120. So it's gonna adjust your basal rates if you start to go over 120 or if it predicts you're gonna go over 120. So it's gonna keep you very tight. Myself and a lot of type 1s I know that are on very low carb diets put themselves in sleep mode 24/7. So a downfall of the sleep mode, it doesn't apply to me, but if say you do eat a lot of carbs and you do have the higher post-meal spikes, the sleep mode is not going to bring your high down because you're not going to get the correction bolus that just the Control IQ uses. It only adjusts your basal rates. But it is a lot of fluctuation that you don't want to risk with eating a higher carb diet, I don't recommend it. And honestly, your doctor probably won't recommend using sleep mode 24/7 ever. It's just something that I have used, and I've heard of a lot of people that have done it. Sleep mode is great to use at night, really for everyone. It's gonna keep you much tighter. You're not gonna have the food spikes because you're not consuming food. It should just be a small basal adjustment. That should be all you need. You shouldn't need a correction dose unless your diabetes isn't managed as well. So kind of use your best judgment with those, but if you want to try out the sleep mode, you can set it up to 24 hours and it's pretty useful. Omnipod 5 does not have a sleep mode, so the obvious winner is T-Slim. Speaking of auto correction doses, not only does T-Slim adjust your basal rates according to what your blood sugar is, if it goes too high or if it's predicted to go too high, over 180, you will receive an auto correction dose. Omnipod does not do this, so T-Slim wins once again with this. In the automated mode, Control-IQ does have its own algorithm for deciding what your basal rate should be changed to, but it does initially use what you enter your basal rates as. So you do have control there. With Omnipod 5, when you start their Smart Adjust, they claim to have such great intelligence, like an AI feature, like a little AI robot in there that just comes up with your basal rate. I think it's just a flat rate for everyone to begin with. They start on the low end because they even admit that you need to give it a few days. It just never kicked in and got much better for me. So with the Omnipod 5, you can adjust your ratios, your correction factor, your insulin to carb ratio, all of that. But like I said, it is not going to consider basal rate changes. It's just going to start you off with what it thinks you need. And that's scary, leaving that up to someone else when it's considering type 1 diabetes. With the T-Slim, you do have more control. You can always adjust those basal rates, those settings when you need to. T-Slim wins this one for me. All right, so here's another big one for me. With the Tandem, you can look up a detailed history of your basal rate adjustments, even on the Control-IQ, when you're not in control as much as you would normally be. With the Omnipod 5, the history anyway is very subpar. They do have, their glucose you could look at online, but on the actual PDM itself, there's nothing stored on there. And once the Smart Adjust is activated, your endocrinologist is not going to be able to look up much of anything. I don't think the basal rate adjustments are on there. So when the Smart Adjust is adjusting everything, they don't know what it adjusted. So if you're on the Smart Adjust for an extended period of time, are you gonna know what your current basal rates are? I want to know what to give myself for a basal rate if my pod fails and I don't have any to back it up. What am I gonna do if I have to go to multiple daily injections? What am I gonna do if there's a lapse in my insurance? Things happen. We all know this with our supplies. We have to have a backup. T-Slim takes the point for this one. Okay, so I've touched base on this a little bit. This is Omnipod 5's selling point. Their pods have AI, artificial intelligence, that can calculate what you need. They do all the work for you. This never happened for me. I gave it time with the Omnipod 5 rep I spoke with. I agreed to do this for 2 to 3 weeks. I lasted, I think, 9 days. I just couldn't. My blood sugars were 250 pretty regularly. They were going up that high. They weren't going much over that, but they were staying there quite a bit. I wasn't happy with the way the pod claims it takes over. I like more control. Even when I did adjust my settings, I was just running too high. I don't feel like the basal rates were ever correct. I had issues with foot on the floor syndrome. Most type 1 diabetics deal with this. Most people deal with this. In a non-diabetic person, their body is going to counteract that with insulin. The insulin is going to metabolize the sugar, the glucose in your system. So that doesn't work for me because my pancreas doesn't do that. I don't produce any insulin. The Omnipod 5 never took care of that. I saw claims that it was supposed to. It should have picked up on that pattern and taken care of that, because that happens to me every day. Every day I have my basal rates higher in the morning than I do any other time. But it never took over and helped me out with that. That was just a big letdown with the Omnipod 5. All right, so for the grand total, Tandem took the lead. There are a few things I would like to see improved on it, but in my eyes, it is a better device for helping me manage my diabetes. Please understand that this video was biased towards my needs and what I see as a priority in my life, using an insulin delivery system. Being tubeless alone should have given Omnipod more points than just one. They were just for the simplicity of the video, trying to do the comparison, but really I understand being tubeless is way more beneficial than some of these other functions to some people. To me, it definitely raised my chances of sticking with the Omnipod 5, but when it came down to it, I just had to go with the T-Slim, so I went back to the T-Slim. Tandem and Omnipod are both fantastic companies. I'd say they are the most innovative companies out there right now. Tandem is in the process of getting the approval for the Mobi. It is a tubeless pump that should be coming out anywhere from 2 to 3 years, could be all the way up to 4 years is what I heard from a Tandem rep. I hope it's not that long because I'm looking forward to it. Please don't hesitate to leave me a comment below about any experiences you've had using either one of these pumps, or maybe you've used both pumps and would like to give a comparison. That would be great. If you are still undecided about which device to try out next, please check out my video how to test out the Omnipod 5 and the T-Slim X2 at the same time. I will link it right here. Again, my name is Jillian. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this information useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.